Hi everyone, just wanted to do my video response. If you hear a little noise in the background, the little one, she decided that she wanted to do the video response. Okay, so Danny asked 3 questions, and the first one I found to be very difficult to answer because who am I? I mean, that's kind of a question that, like it's talked about in the stages or status or whatever. That's something that you really, I don't think you can ever really answer straight up who you are as your identity. At one point you can, but I think it changes. And one thing I found interesting out of the book, out of the article from Erickson said this: identity development means there is increasing congruence between oneself and external feedback. That describes me very well because I feel like I'm a person that I tend to take society or individuals' feedback about myself and kind of, I guess you could say, I sometimes not change who I am, but I tend to adapt to my environment of what I think I need to be, if that makes any sense. It makes sense to me, but who am I? That's a question I think people ask themselves a lot. Sometimes we get caught up in life, we get caught up in jobs and school and things, and we don't really know, we don't really tend to really sit back and think about that as much, but that's a tough question. You know, who are you? One thing I found interesting in the Asian American article was at the center of the chart was identity, obviously. I mean, that's interesting to me, but then as it spreads out, it talks about society, and then it even had like a list of like humility was under there, I believe. Should have written it down, but I thought it was really interesting because everything spawned away from or spread out from the identity part of the person, which is interesting because you don't really tend to think that way unless you take a minute back and really think about it. But as far as the charts in the Helms article, or the different sections of, you know, identity, I guess you could say, with prejudice, or which one do I relate to? I read over those things like 4 times, and it's hard to really pick one out that you're really, I guess, stuck on. I think the one that would most definitely probably fit with me the most would be disintegration status, because that's just me. Like, I've never been one to really be prejudiced. I went to a high school that wasn't predominantly black, wasn't predominantly white, or it was, you know, I had white friends, black friends, Hispanic friends. I had all types of friends. It wasn't hard for me to get along with anyone, so any particular person really. So that one I felt like the disintegration status fit me most. And unfortunately, you know, racial stereotypes are big, unfortunately, and that's just how the world is today. But how do we, as the last question was, how do we as professionals help students find their identity? I think it is important to understand as a professional that you're there to support that student no matter what. And you have to understand, one thing that was really big where I worked was my office was always a safe zone. And you could come in there and talk to me. Obviously, there are some things, you know, you have to be precautious about. Like, you can, you know, tell them about the counseling center if they need to go to the counseling center. But a person knew when they come to my office they weren't going to be judged. Like, you are a student that I'm here to help. And I think that's really one of the most important things, is just realizing that you're there to help the student. You're not, you know, there's not I don't think there's a specific way to help them find their identity except for to be there for them when they need you, when they need someone to talk to, whether it's, you know, if you're in campus rec or if you're in housing and you have a resident who needs, you know, needs assistance, needs someone to talk to. I know there's a lot of responsibility on RAs and people in charge of housing because of the students, and they go through the troubles of first coming to college and finding their self, I guess you could say, really identifying who they are. And I think that, different ways to approach different people. There are absolutely different ways to approach different people. It also depends on the institution you're at, the type of students you're dealing with, the location of the institution. Are you in a, are you in a uptown city where you've got a lot of inner city kids coming, or even here we have a lot of kids from Atlanta, and a lot of them grew up a lot differently than even that I did in North Carolina. It's just different type of people. You just have to know a student, because that's one of the challenges I had when I came down here, was knowing how to talk to a student differently here than I did up in North Carolina. And when I say that, I mean like teaching them as far as which ways work best to teach these students. What can I do to make these students successful? But yeah, I think that pretty much answers it. I think that all of the identity models in the book, in the Evans book, were very helpful in understanding. And like I said, you have to take a minute to kind of sit back and really think about it, because I had never, obviously, I've never been exposed to the sectors of the Black identity development, or it's even further reading into the white racial consciousness model. Like, these things, like, you just really have to take a minute and read them and comprehend them and understand them, because they're going to be beneficial when we're professionals, because you never know what types of students you're going to come into contact with, and you have to be there to support them and be there for them. So yeah, I think they were good questions. I think that's all I have, pretty much. So thanks.